Most individuals live under a dangerous illusion. The assumption that the world rewards the just that society value, honesty, and that all it takes is being a good person to obtain fair treatment in return. But what if I told you that this is a foolish narrative meant to keep you submissive, while others play the real game of power? Arthur Schopenhauer saw this truth long before any other modern philosopher. He did not see human beings as naturally good creatures, but rather as animals driven by incessant desires, manipulative by nature, and always willing to hide their true intentions behind masks of morality and good manners. And this is exactly why Robert Greene, author of the 48 Laws of Power, drank so much from this source, because understanding Schopenhauer is like receiving a map of the hidden gears that govern human interactions. Schopenhauer was a man who lived on the margins of society, observing people from afar, analyzing their contradictions, their games of interest, and the way in which power really presents itself. Unlike other thinkers who strove to justify morality, he had no illusions about human nature for him. People do not behave based on reason, but rather on their most primitive impulses. This is what makes him a reference. For anyone who wants to understand the invisible rules that govern power and influence, Robert Greene not only absorbed these ideas but transformed them into a strategic manual for those who want to navigate this game without being a victim in. This video, we will explore 3 fundamental aspects of Schopenhauer's philosophy that shaped the 48 Laws of Power. First, the brutal truth about human nature that he revealed, and that dismantles any illusions you may have about the people around you. Then, the game of manipulation, and how Schopenhauer anticipated the power tactics that are still used today by politicians, businessmen, and anyone who understands how to dominate an environment. Finally, we will see how this knowledge can be used in real life, whether to protect yourself from manipulation or even to use it strategically when necessary. The big question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you ignore it and continue to believe that society rewards the naive? Or will you see reality as it is and learn to play smart? We believe that we are rational beings, that our actions are guided by logic, and that we make decisions based on what is morally correct. But Schopenhauer did not see things that way. For him, human rationality is only a thin veneer over a much more primitive and irrational structure. What actually motivates us is not lofty principles, but desire, an incessant, blind, and frequently self-destructive desire. We want status. We want power. We want to be respected, and when we don't get it, we get upset, resentful. And then we mask these sentiments under discourses of morality and justice. This view dismantles one of the major social illusions, the assumption that being a good person is enough for others to be good in return. The world doesn't function that way. The world doesn't reward the just. It rewards the strategists. Robert Greene understood this perfectly when he wrote his law. 1. Never outshine the master, no matter how talented or brilliant you are, if you don't know how to deal with the egos of those around you. You're doomed, because in the game of power, it's not the most just who wins, but rather the one who best understands the dynamics of human desires. Schopenhauer went even further. For him, existence itself is suffering, because we are always wanting something we don't have. We achieve a goal and immediately move on to the next, trapped in an eternal cycle of dissatisfaction. Pleasure is fleeting, but the desire to always want more is constant. And that's exactly why society is so competitive and hierarchical, because everyone is fighting to satisfy their desires, often at the expense of others. And here comes one of Greene's most strategic laws, Law 3. Hide your intentions if everyone is competing. Revealing your true desire is handing ammunition to the enemy. What Schopenhauer revealed, and what Greene translated into tactics, is that it's not enough to have talent, effort, or good intentions. You have To understand how the game works, powerful people are those who master the art of perception, who know when to speak and when to remain silent, who can see beyond words and grasp the true interests behind actions. This is where another powerful connection between the two thinkers comes in. Law 14. Act as a friend. But work as a spy. Schopenhauer understood that human interactions are a minefield. He believed that blindly trusting people was a weakness. The social game for him was a war of interests, and those who do not recognize this become easy prey. But there is an even more bizarre feature in this story, the fact that morality itself is often used as a weapon of control. Schopenhauer did not see morality as something absolute, but rather as a tool used by those who wish to manipulate others. What we call morality is often nothing more than a strategy to impose rules that benefit those at the top of the social hierarchy. This connects directly with Greene's strategic thinking and his law. 32. Grab attention with theatricality. Great leaders, politicians, and influential figures have always been able to use moral discourse to capture the public's loyalty while behind the scenes playing a completely different game. The big question that arises is if human nature is driven by desire and society is built on layers of manipulation, how can we navigate this game without being crushed? Schopenhauer's answer was plain lucidity. He believed that the only way to avoid being deceived was to see reality as it is without filters, and Robert Greene transformed this idea into a practical strategy. Understanding human nature is not an invitation to cynicism, but rather a tool to avoid falling victim to games that are played all the time, whether you like it or not. Now that we understand this brutal truth, the next question is inevitable if manipulation is an essential aspect of human relationship. Show precisely does it work. In the next chapter, we will explore how Schopenhauer anticipated the power and argumentation tactics that are still used today by those who dominate the social game. If the truth about human nature is so stark, then the logical consequence is inevitable. Manipulation is not a deviation from human behavior. It is the norm. Everyone at some level tries to influence others to achieve their goals. Some do it consciously, others unwittingly. But the fact is that social life is not a balanced exchange of kindness and justice. It is a chessboard where whoever knows how to move the pieces best wins. Schopenhauer understood this before any other modern philosopher, and Robert Greene simply refined this information into a strategic manual. Schopenhauer unraveled the dynamics of power, especially in the area of argumentation. His book, Eristic Dialectics, was not a treatise on how to seek the truth, but on how to win arguments, even when you are wrong. He understood that logic does not govern debates. Persuasion. Does this connects directly to Greene's 21st law? Play the fool to catch the fools, a common mistake of intelligent people is to believe that being right is enough to convince others. But Schopenhauer made it clear that reason is not as powerful as rhetoric theatricality and the ability to manipulate the perception of the opponent. The techniques he described are still used today. Politicians deflect questions to avoid incriminating replies. Businesses disqualify competitors without explicitly confronting them. Charismatic leaders interest their audiences in emotions such that they do not notice logical faults in their speech's argument, according to Schopenhauer, rarely seeks the truth. It wants victory, and those who do not understand this are always at a disadvantage. It is precisely this view that Greene converts into law. 26. Keep your hands clean. The best manipulation is the one that no one understands is happening. However, Schopenhauer did not stop there. He also remarked that most manipulation takes place under a mask of morality. Few people admit that they're playing a game of self-interest. Instead, they present themselves as defenders of good justice and truth. But the reality is different. What we call morality is often a well-rehearsed play to obtain power without appearing to desire power. This is essential to understanding. Law 32 get attention with theatricality. Those who have mastered this game know that appearances frequently count more than substance. In a world controlled by perception, the ability to fascinate, to draw focus, and to create a sense of mystery can be more effective than possessing actual expertise or depth. But there is a vital detail that many fail to recognize. Sometimes the most powerful move is to pull away from the game entirely. Arthur Schopenhauer, despite his thorough comprehension of social dynamics, made an uncommon choice. He embraced seclusion. While many intellectuals of his period wanted public fame, engaging in arguments and alliances to expand their influence, Schopenhauer purposefully withdrew himself from the chaos of public life. He saw society as a theater where individuals performed rather than lived truly. To him, the world was full of superficial exchanges, where true understanding could only be obtained via serious introspection, away from the distractions of constant social maneuvering. This approach correlates strongly with Law 18 of the 48 Laws of Power: be connected to no one. Real power generally does not come from standing in the spotlight, nor does it always belong to people who want constant validation from others. Instead, it is anchored in autonomy, in the ability to stay untouched by the tides of communal opinion and expectation. When we free ourselves from the need for approval, we have the ability to move strategically rather than emotionally, making decisions that serve our long-term interests rather than being caught in the transitory needs of the present. But what does this entail in practical terms? It suggests that in a world preoccupied with attention, there is power in detachment. It means that folks who are continually seeking recognition frequently become prisoners of the very attention they crave. They become predictable, easily controlled, and prone to the whims of those who understand how to manage perception. Schopenhauer not only comprehended manipulation, but also foresaw the same laws that Robert Greene would later formalize. He saw that the ability to disconnect, to withdraw oneself from the diversions of social dramas, was a unique and formidable capability. Yet an urgent dilemma emerges. Now that we understand this, what do we do with this knowledge? Should we disregard it and continue to assume that honesty, fairness, and justice always triumph in a society governed by power dynamics? Or should we acknowledge these truths and learn to navigate them wisely? This is not a call to surrender morals or integrity, but rather an opportunity to cultivate awareness, a shield against being abused. To protect ourselves, we must first understand the game being played around us. Social interactions, whether in personal relationships, organizations, or larger societal systems, typically operate under unwritten rules, rules that favor those who understand how to manipulate perception. By stepping back and observing rather than reacting hastily, we obtain a greater perspective on these underlying dynamics. This separation permits us to respond strategically rather than emotionally, guaranteeing that we are neither readily misled nor deceived. These tactics are not simply theoretical principles, but actual methods for managing a world where perception often trumps reality. The truth is, in this complicated game of influence and persuasion, innocence comes at a price, and the first step to avoiding manipulation is to accept that the game exists in the first place. Most people are controlled, not because they lack intelligence, but because they fail to realize when manipulation is occurring. This is largely due to the fact that manipulation is rarely overt. It does not announce itself with a warning label. Instead, it wears disguises, appearing as care, as friendship, or as well-meaning advice. This is precisely why Schopenhauer warned, "Look at actions, not words." He thought that a person's genuine character is not reflected in what they declare, but in what they continuously do over time. Robert Greene took this understanding further and turned it into a practical method in law. 5. Much depends on reputation. Defend it with your life. Those who grasp this idea do not blindly believe eloquent remarks or lofty declarations. Instead, they evaluate patterns of behavior, understanding that consistency in action speaks louder than occasional demonstrations of goodness. However, merely identifying the game is not sufficient. Awareness without action is like possessing a map but refusing to walk the journey. To effectively secure oneself, one must cultivate a critical skill, the art of observation. Schopenhauer highlighted the significance of strategic distancing, the ability to pull back, separate from immediate emotions, and examine things objectively. This skill helps one to identify hidden intents and spot manipulation before it takes hold. This concept coincides with Greene's Law 48. Be fluid like water. Adaptability is the key to maintaining control in unforeseen conditions. Those who can read between the lines, interpret hidden intents, and moderate their emotional responses are rarely caught off guard. They do not react impulsively. Instead, they behave strategically, ensuring they remain in command of their surroundings. But what if avoidance is not an option? What if you are thrust into the game, forced to engage? In such instances, playing smart is the only possible choice. This does not mean becoming deceptive or unkind. Rather, it involves discarding innocence and embracing a measured attitude to interactions. If someone attempts to manipulate you, apply the method of inversion. Turn the issue on its head. Expose contradictions, rephrase the argument, and quietly force the manipulator to expose their genuine motives. Schopenhauer saw that many arguments are not true quests of truth, but contests for dominance. This is why, at times, the most striking answer is quiet. Greene captures this in Law 4. Say less than necessary. Over-explaining, rationalizing, or talking excessively makes one predictable, and in the game of power, predictability is a weakness that can be exploited. Ultimately, the decision rests with you. You can choose to dismiss these lessons, expecting that fairness will prevail in an essentially unfair world. Or you can use them to build awareness, sharpen your strategic thinking, and strengthen yourself against those who seek to control and manipulate. The option is a decisive one, determining whether you navigate the game as a player or stay a pawn, unconsciously driven by forces beyond your comprehension.